All right. So I'm going to begin by stating my name. I'm Joaquin Jose Ortiz. I'll be the interviewer, and then you say your name.
I'm Corey Cummings, and I am note taking.
I'm Peyton Maddox, and I'm camera operator.
Jonathan Level, second AC and sound.
All right. And then you'll state your name, your organization, affiliation. Uh, yeah.
Like, well, I don't have an organization affiliation. Like, what do you mean?
What branch did you say?
Oh, okay, gotcha. My name is Robert Way, United States Marines.
Awesome. And we're here at Columbia State Community College. All right. So we're going to start with some biographical details, start slow
Sure.
with some stuff about yourself. So where were you born originally?
I was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Nice. How'd you end up in Tennessee?
Interesting story. I was pumping gas at a gas station in my hometown, and I have a PTSD from the war, so I have like what they call a 1,000-yard stare. So I stare a lot, and sometimes I don't realize I'm staring at people when they're in my line of sight. But just so happens I focused and I saw this blonde girl pumping gas. Looked like I was staring at her, so she thought I was a creep. I went over to her and talked to her, and I said, "Hey, wasn't staring at you. Not a creepo or stalker or anything, And I said, "Well, where are you from? Because you don't look like you're from around here." And she's like, "I'm from Tennessee." And I'm like, "Well, you're the country girl I've been looking for my whole life." And a week later, we went on a date. And a week later, she moved in. And a year later, we got married. And she's from Columbia, Tennessee, so that's where we ended up. That's why I'm here. Probably one of the best decisions I ever made.
And that was like blind luck, huh?
Blind luck, man.
That's awesome, man. Who are your parents, or who were your parents, and what are their occupations?
My mom is Virginia Dunton. She works at a hospital doing housekeeping. My dad is a well-known, famous artist out of Pinehurst, North Carolina.
Who are your siblings? Names, genders, and did any of them serve?
I have four sisters. They're all younger than I am. Holly, Robin, Heidi, and Heather. And none of them have served in the military.
What primary, secondary schools, or college did you attend?
Okay, so I didn't really start doing my education until after the military. That's when I realized how important education was. So every 2 years, I learn a new trade ever since I got out of the military. So I've been a private investigator. I've been a professional locksmith. I'm a certified baker. I also worked as a guardian ad litem in the court system for almost 10 years. I've also was a rock star photographer. And then I went to film school, and then I became an actor. I've done a lot of other things in between. It's just the ones that just pop up top of my head right at the moment. But I believe in learning a new trade every couple of years. Um, that's just the way my mind works. So once I got into acting, I think this is kind of like my last hoorah as far as learning new things. I mean, as far as like trades, I kind of like want to take all my energy into the acting career. So that's kind of where I'm at today.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of other like college courses, private investigation. I was a private investigator. So I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. Military, and when I was in the military, I did correspondence courses like every month the whole time I was there. So, um, I, that's a better way for me to learn, other than like sitting in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
I learn better on my own. So, the majority of my courses were correspondence. So, but yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of stuff in my life.
That's awesome. Did you hold any jobs before entering the service?
Yeah, actually, right out of high school, I did construction trades in high school, so I learned how to build houses and modular homes from the foundation all the way up, to the finished product. So I went into construction for a while, and then I think my bread and butter was the last job I held. I actually quit to go in the military was insulation installer. So I did blown insulation in a lot of houses and new developments. So that's kind of my last job was basically working as an insulation.
Cool. Now we're going to go into some of your early days of service. And you said you were a Marine?
Yes.
Marine Corps?
Yes.
That's awesome. I went to a Marine ROTC, so I'm kind of familiar with some of the culture, but I served in the Army. I ended up serving in the Army.
That's okay. I won't blame you.
Yeah. So can you tell us about when you went into the military? Were you drafted or did you enlist?
Well, I was kind of a troublemaker as a teenager, and I knew I had very few choices in life at the time that I joined the Marine Corps. It was either join the Marine Corps or go to jail, kind of a thing, Mm-hmm. Had a probation officer, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I was cool back then, but it's not cool now. And so my cousin had just graduated boot camp, and he decided he was going to send a recruiter to my house, him and a recruiter, just out of the blue, and knocked on my door when their dress blues on. And that's all it took right there. I mean, when I saw the dress blues, can I get a pair of them? And they're like, oh, absolutely, you get a pair when you graduate. And I'm like, well, those are pretty sharp. And knowing my dad was in the Army, lifetime Army, he did things like counterintelligence. He was a combat engineer also, and then went into, what's that unit called? He did some really cool stuff. And then Delta Force, yeah. So he was like on Delta Force and did all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I kind of wanted to blow stuff up. And my dad, growing up, would make little explosives with matches and show me how to blow stuff up like that, using improvised stuff. And I was like, dude, that's kind of like right up my alley. So the recruiter came and asked me what I want to do. I said, I want to blow stuff up. And he says, well, I can get you right in and, sign on the dotted line. I was like, well, you're going to get me out of here in a week because I joined the Army. And, and they're like, oh, no, don't worry about that. And so they got me out of that situation. I joined, and like a month later, I was in boot camp. So I had to get in quick. But that was probably the best decision I ever made, going in the military.
Yeah.
Especially at that time in my life.
It's put you on a better path.
Well, you just never know. Really, you don't, at that age, you really have no clue or incentive to really do anything. I grew up on the welfare system, so I didn't really have the best of anything. So, and plus I had Tourette syndrome when I was at that age, so I was, I was a little different. Got picked on a lot. I was short in stature. So I had a lot of things that were working against me. And I was also deaf till I was 12 years old. So I had a learning disability where I had to learn how to hear in school, and people thought I just wasn't listening. I didn't know I was deaf. And so I picked up honed skills that a person with hearing wouldn't normally have. Like I could read lips across the room. So when I went in the military, counterintelligence was one of my best jobs because I had these skills that normal people wouldn't, and I could read people's emotions. I could read people just by watching them. So I could pick out a personality just by talking to somebody for a couple of minutes, seeing how they interact with other people. So those types of skills that I learned that nobody else really had, it kind of it stunted me as far as maturity wise, But then when I did have the surgery and I woke up and I could hear a pin drop, I started crying. And I knew then that, my whole life's going to change. So, I kind of had, I would say that, those types of skills learning, it just helps you out, But I forgot what question was, but,
No, you're good, sir.
All right.
Sorry, I'm recovering from a cold a little bit.
That's fine.
But, yeah, the dress uniform, that'll get you.
And I didn't get any when I graduated. Matter of fact, my unit was the only unit, or series, where they were having a a lawsuit against the company that made the dress blues and our Charlie uniforms, the Class A's, because they were using cheap material that we were paying for the good stuff, and they were using cheaper materials. So for some reason, my class never got dress blues in boot camp. So I was the only one that never got dress blues. So that was kind of really ripped me for a minute there. They promised me dress blues, and I think I even paid for them.
Yeah, recruiters lie, sometimes.
When I got out of boot camp, my recruiter gave me $50. He said, "Take this girl out. We got to get her in." I got her in, but that's the tactics that they use, And I wanted to punch my recruiter when I got out of boot camp. I went back and wanted to punch him, but I'm glad I didn't, because it did really. It's a long. We'll get to that. We'll get to the story.
So, what or who did you leave behind? Any family or anything when you left to serve?
So I left my 4 sisters, my mom. I didn't tell anybody I actually joined the military until a couple weeks before I went in. I actually went to boot camp. I just one day decided, I just went home and told my mom, "Well, I'm leaving next week to go into the Marine Corps, so I don't know what you want me to do." She wanted me to do something. I was like, "Well, I'm going to be gone." She's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, I went to the Marine Corps." Well, then I had to call my dad, who was in Germany, who tried to get me into the Army. And I called my dad, and I call him on the week before we graduate boot camp. You get one phone call. And I called my dad in Germany, and I told him, I said, "Well, I'm going to be a Marine in a couple of weeks." And he's like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're already out of boot camp." And I'm like, "No, I didn't go to the Army. I joined the Marine Corps." And he goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, the Army, you just take anybody off the street. Marine Corps just looking for a few good men." He goes, "Now I got to go and tell everybody I got a jarhead for a son." So that's all I wrote right there. So me and my dad have been in competition ever since, because he did everything. I'm doing everything he did. Well, he did in the Army. I'm doing in the Marine Corps. So, and I always try to tell him, well, Marines are better than all that kind of stuff. So we do have a little bit of a rivalry.
It's like a sibling rivalry.
It is. Yeah. It is.
What type of training or schools did you have? Advanced training courses?
So I went to Courthouse Bay at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and learned. We did explosive training, combat engineer course. So we work with explosives, dummy mines, learn how to place mines, etc., explosives, improvised mines, booby traps, stuff like that. Then we learned heavy equipment operation, bulldozers and forklifts and stuff like that. So that was the school that I went in for my original job. But then you have other training, like you go to the rifle range, and you qualify in a rifle range every year. And then I went to. So then after I got done with that, I re-enlisted after Desert Storm, and became a Central Control and Management. Joined a Central Control and Management platoon called 2nd Scamp. And we would go around and basically do drug interdiction all around the country and overseas. So went to McAllen, Texas, went to the Grand Canyon, and busted the Hopi Indians over there growing marijuana on the south side of the Grand Canyon, which is America. We own that. And then went to McAllen, Texas on the border, and busted the Mexicans coming across the bridges. And then as engineers, we can go blow the bridge up, and then the Mexicans would go down a little bit further down the miles and build another one. And then we'd eventually find that one, blow that one up, then they'd build another one over here. So that's kind of like what we did. That was probably my favorite job. So yeah, we just have a lot of different schools while you're there, combat schools, stuff like that.
You picked the right job to blow stuff up.
Yeah,
Engineers.
definitely.
Yeah.
I got lucky, and I was good at it. So I was a crazy guy. So as a corporal, as a non-commissioned officer, you have a job where if, say, like, you set the ordnance up out there on the range, and you just set up 80 pounds of C4 and some maybe some dynamite or whatever, and you know, it didn't go off. When you set it, it didn't go off. So you wait 30 minutes, and then you're the guy that has to go out there and try to figure out where it went wrong. Sometimes mistakes happen, you know. And I never witnessed anything like that, but I've heard stories. When I was in Cuba, doing the minefields in Cuba, Guantanamo Bay, we went over there and we built the camp that's the Camp X-Ray, which is they're using to hold all the terrorists right now. We actually built that. They knew what we were building it for. We didn't. We just know we had a job to go over and build some housing. And then come to find out, they turned into the biggest jail of all times for terrorists. So yeah, cool stuff.
Awesome. What was your most vivid memories of your time training or in school? What was your best part, worst part?
I think the best part would be the gas chamber. That was fun. You go into a gas chamber and then they go ahead and they light that stuff up in there with your gas mask on, but then you have to break the seal and try to hold your breath, and then you get exposed, and it loosens up every part of and any upper respiratory problems you have, you won't have them anymore, because it's basically you cough, you can't stop breathing, you can't breathe. There's actually outside of the gas chamber, once everybody has to hold on to themselves, they get in a line, they have to run out, and you run in there. So they want you to breathe that stuff in. And then as everybody starts coughing, and some people can handle it better than others, because you go in there psychologically what you're ready for. You can make it through it. But then me and another guy made it through no problem, didn't even sweat or nothing, and they made us go back in again. Because everybody else, snot would come out of their nose. Some of them would throw up. But I wanted to win the contest, and the contest was whoever has the longest trail of snot coming out of their nose. And we actually have a measuring tool on the sidewalk outside. So as soon as you walk out, you can participate. Take your gas mask off and start where the beginning line is and walk as far as you can without breaking that snot line. I didn't make it because it was actually a guy that did it a lot better than I did, but it was a pretty cool.
Yeah, with training like that, because in the Army, it was kind of like some of the best / worst stuff. Like, it was awesome, but I wouldn't want to do it again, kind of thing.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I wouldn't do again, but like during one night we were doing some combat training, and the instructors come in at like 3 a.m. and start shooting rounds off, and that kind of crap. I really hated that. I mean, I like sleeping. I love sleep, but you really get that in the Marines when you're during training. So I think the issue of the Marine Corps is it's more psychological trauma than anything else, and then the physical part comes in. But once you pass the psychology of it, you can actually do great things in the Marine Corps.
Did any instructors stick out to you and prepare you for that?
Well, we had in boot camp, one of my favorite instructors was really wired the whole time. I didn't understand it, but he reminded me of Donkey Kong. He was just this big black guy, didn't take no flack from nobody, but I was the shortest guy in boot camp, okay? So he had this affinity for me, and ended up being what they call the house mouse. And the house mouse has to clean the DI's room, their barracks, make their bed, make their rack, clean, dust their place, clean their bathrooms. And but I got good access to a lot of things that normally you wouldn't get, like access to other people's Foot Locker, their locker combinations. And so I got manipulated into playing some games with some people. That drill instructor really liked me. So I liked him because we kind of knew that we were playing games with other people, and he was using me as a pawn. But I figured all this stuff out after boot camp, why they use you to do certain things. And the psychology of it was to get me to do things that I normally wouldn't have done, but to get other people in trouble. So, but then when we graduated, he was the first guy to come up to me and my dad and tell him how great it was, and all the games he used to play on me. And then I found out a year later that he walked into the barracks during one of the boot camp sessions and blew his head off in front of everybody. So you really don't know what people are what kind of things people are going through in their life, you know. And that was really a shame when I heard that. And of course now I've been out of the military for 30 years. I can see why certain people would do certain things, you know. So, but that guy stuck out to me probably the most out of everybody I ever met in the Marine Corps.
Yeah. What was your first assignment after basic training?
My first assignment was I got to pick. I got 3 locations that I can choose to go travel in. You know, you pick the first one you really want, and if you can't go there, you wish the next best place. And I picked Japan, and it was funny because, like, growing up as a child, I used to watch cartoons, and the only time I ever, you know, there were cartoons and they'll go to Japan and stuff, and I'm just like, there's no way in my life I'd ever get to go there. And then my first duty station was Japan. It was Okinawa, Japan. And it was, you know, I was 18 years old. I was green. I was really green. Didn't know anything about the Marine Corps, so I got manipulated a lot by people. You know, they do that on purpose with the new guys. But yeah, the 3rd Combat Engineers in Okinawa, Japan, Camp Hansen. And it was a great experience for a guy at 18 years old because you have beer machines in the barracks. And I'm just like, beer machines in the barracks. 85-cent Heinekens, you know. I'm just like, this is the life, dude. And but that place was probably the beginning of I think every Marine should probably do. They call them hardship duty stations because they're not in the United States. I think every Marine should do a hardship duty station first. I mean, no matter where it is, but Okinawa was a great place. I learned a lot about their culture.
That's awesome. That's a great first duty station. Huh?
It was great. I learned how to drink. Yeah, you're either one or two things in the Marine Corps, and that's a jock or a drunk. So, but yeah, I will say that Okinawa was a really cool place to be. The Japanese people were great. You know, the Japanese police, you do not mess with them. No matter how big you are, they will knock you out. They will get you on the ground. You don't mess with the Japanese police.
Did you receive any specialized training? If so, what was it?
Specialized training. Well, we had to learn our specialty, of course, but I mean, there are other, like I went to a non-commissioned officer course. A lot of NCOs, when you hit corporal and above, you got to go to this school. And basically, it's just a rendition of now you're in charge of troops. How do you handle that kind of thing? Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really any special training other than I did some. My favorite training was the counterintelligence training at Nemitz, Virginia, the Navy Marine Corps Intelligence Training Center. Learned a lot of stuff there. That was probably my favorite, thing I did. Special, skills or whatever.
What would you say was the hardest part of the military lifestyle to adapt to?
Getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day and running 5 miles. I hated it. PT was the worst. A lot of it the majority is because we drank till 5. Then we had to get up and go and run 5 miles in an hour and a half. That was just the way we lived, though, So I think that was the worst part. I mean, once we got running, it was great. I felt great afterwards, but it's getting up early in the morning, being told what to do constantly. You have a lot of different personalities you got to deal with. Different cultures you got to deal with. So if you're prejudiced, if you don't like people, joining the military is not the place for you. So you have to, and as an issue, you have to learn how to get people to like you. You have to get people to like each other, get along. You're basically an overpaid babysitter. You got to deal with people's finances. Some people, some of these kids think because they got a checkbook, they got money in the bank, and when they're bouncing checks, you got to treat them like you're your kid, you know. So you're doing a lot of babysitting.
I hear that. What was the easiest part of the military lifestyle to adapt to, you think?
Well, I got easier once I hit corporal and I hit sergeant. I was more apt, to be able to tell people what to do than having to do it myself. Man, I guess the easiest part was just getting along with people and learning how people are in their lives and where they come from, and appreciating that. I worked with, I went to combat with drugstore clerks, horse people that ride horses, lawyers, a lot of farmers, and each one of them all have a different story. And to see all those types of people there and that you're a member of is a great experience. But I would have to say the easiest part about being in the military, is just, just be where you got to be, but be there 15 minutes early.
Yep. Hoorah to that, man. All right, now we'll get into the wartime services. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, where did you serve?
I'll try to do this in chronological order. My first combat experience would have to be Panama, Operation Just Cause. I believe that was in 1989. And we were over there. George Bush sent us over there because Manuel Noriega was running drugs through the Panama Canal, all that kind of whatever. And so we, a lot of the Marines, the combat engineers went over there on the Bravo side of the Panama Canal. And, it's weird because it was like 2 years before me being there, I was doing a book report in high school about the Panama Canal and the Bridge of Americas. Now here I am loading up the Bridge of Americas with 3,000 pounds of C4, getting ready to blow it up. So here I am, like, making history. I'm just reading history now. I'm literally history. It's an amazing concept. Then there was an incident there where at a fuel farm, I'm just driving a Hummer, driving somebody to the fuel farm, and there was an incident. We were getting shot at by the Panamanians there they have different zones. There's the white zone and the green zone. In the white zone, you don't want to be there, and the green zone's okay. Well, they were shooting stuff over our fence line and couldn't see them. And so I got to stand there with a gun, with my rifle, ready to shoot. Didn't get to shoot anybody, but, I was still in that combat situation. And then they were sending all the LAVs out there to shoot them all down with the 50 cals. So Panama was a pretty cool place. Let me see, where else did I go? I've been all over. So, I've been to the Philippines, I've been to Hong Kong, Korea, I've been to Thailand, which is probably one of my favorite spaces to ever be in Thailand. And then Desert Storm. So then the next combat situation would have been Desert Storm. So I got promoted to corporal the day I left to get on a plane to go take a platoon of guys into combat. So I made corporal, get on a plane, here I am, like fresh green corporal, getting ready to take a bunch of guys out in the desert. So it was kind of scary, but at the same time it was pretty neat. Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. That was probably my last duty station. But I've been all over the world.
That's awesome. Now, you talked about some of your experience in those combat zones.
Yes.
Do you have any other recollections or experiences?
Yeah. So the main thing about combat is when you get there, you're not really doing much for a few months. You kind of like you're constantly moving, digging new foxholes. Um, the big deal that we were always worried about in Desert Storm was the possibility that Saddam Hussein was going to use chemical weapons on us. That was a daily struggle, every day, all day long. That's all you thought about. And so you were more worried about catching the funky chicken, what I call it. When you hit the nerve agent hits you, you can't control your body, so you call it doing the funky chicken. And so yeah, so basically we had to take some pills over there too that were anti-nerve agent pills. Because we were exposed to low levels of nerve agent, mustard gas, and depleted uranium on a daily basis. After we killed a bunch of tanks and Iraqis and stuff, we would go through what we call the spoils of war. So, you're sitting in a foxhole for 3 months and you just want somebody to shoot at you. I mean, it gets to that point where the psychology of it is you're waiting and you can hear and see the bombs over there couple miles ahead of you, but you can't do anything, and you just like, listen, give me a reason to shoot my gun, give me a reason to kill somebody. And that whole time you're sitting there waiting, and you physically want somebody to shoot at you, so you have a reason to just get busy. So the fogs of war is one thing. The next thing is, after you're done killing everybody, you want to go and see what damage you've done. So you're out there, you're looking around, and you might see, oh, there's a weapon. I'm going to take that guy's gun. That AK-47 looks nice. Here's a nice knife, But then we'd go in the tanks, and the burning tanks and stuff were still smoldering with smoke. And you're going in, and you're looking, and you're seeing exploded ordnance. You got some that haven't been exploded. You got body parts everywhere. We got people everywhere. And seeing all the destruction. And like the highway to hell was the worst part, coming out of Kuwait City, and just seeing people burnt. They're just like burnt in place, like charcoal. Like you only seen that on the movies. Well, this is real life, with half his head missing. So you're kind of like dealing with that kind of trauma. But at the same time, you're like, yeah, like we killed them. We got, you're just psyched that you got to kill a bunch of people. But inside the tanks, we were shooting and killing these tanks with depleted uraniums, with rounds, tank busters that had depleted uranium inside in the heads of the. So here we are exploding all this ordnance on the tanks and killing them. But meanwhile, the depleted uranium dust is floating around all over the place. And the main reason why we were using those weapons was because if we didn't kill the guy now, he's going to die in 20 years of cancer or something. And so here we are being exposed to that stuff as soon as within an hour of being exploded. So you're going in there and you're picking up these little ball bearings that the turrets use. They're little ball bearings. They look cool. You put them in your pockets. And you're taking stuff, you're wearing them. Meanwhile, you're breathing in toxic, depleted uranium dust. And then the government wants to deny it. And then, now it's a whole nother battle, when you get back. I was exposed to vaccines when I was over there, like 8 or 9 different vaccines that were never tested by a guinea pig, And people wonder why I don't want vaccines today. Well, there's a reason why 99% of the veterans out there don't trust the government and will not take a vaccine if they're told to take one. So there were times when you were so bored, even after the war, that you would walk around places that you had just bombed and you just see dead bodies, right? Well, I always wanted to know, like I wanted to shoot my gun, so we would go and shoot a lot of dead people, just shoot them, just to get rid of them around, shoot dead people. And they don't bleed. Dead people don't bleed. So that's kind of like psychology of, like, let's just go do something. We'd tie their bodies up with chains and drag them around behind a 5-ton and write SOS in the sand. And then the fighters would go over their jets and drop 5,000-pound fuel bombs on top of them. Just simple sick shit. I think about it today, and I'm like, what kind of person would do that? If you get a bunch of people together in a foxhole for long enough, trust me, you think of a lot of things to do. They seem plenty normal to a person. So, yeah, dealt with that kind of stuff. Dealt with children being rolled over by tanks, dead people, and tanks roll over them, and now they're flat as cardboard. They look like cardboard people. I'm serious. So that's another thing. You got to clean up 100 dead bodies. You dig a hole and you dump them all in a hole, and you bury it big up and you mark it. So yeah, dealing with that kind of destruction. So the fogs of war is not a good thing for a lot of people. And people don't really understand where we come from, and when we come back home, how come we don't talk about things, and how come when somebody dies, we don't really have an affection, we don't have a feeling. I'm numb to that. I'm numb to death. So people may think that I'm not sympathetic about a lot of things. I really am. It's just death like that don't faze me. So that's probably one of the bad side of combat. It can psychologically change you how you think about normal things on a daily basis.
Thank you for answering that question in such detail.
Sure.
I appreciate that. Did you have any comrades, form any friendships while serving? And how do you stay in touch with them and stuff?
I noticed that in the military, it's hard to maintain friendships. Well, for me anyway, it's not like that for everybody, but for me in the job that I had in the military, I was constantly going place to place to place.
Yeah.
So for me, the hardest thing was making friends. And then, you learn after a while that your friend's going to leave, or you're going to leave someday, and you may never see them again. But then as the years went by, you start forgetting things. And I think it's on purpose. Psychologically, your brain shuts off certain things, and you forget about your past. You try to forget about things. So today, I really couldn't tell you a lot about my childhood. I couldn't tell you a lot about a lot of the military experiences, unless somebody clicks my brain and gets me thinking again, because I've just blocked all that stuff out. It's just nonsense to me. So to make my life simple is I don't maintain friendships. I have acquaintances. I maintain friendships as far as working relationships. I might have 3 friends today that I talk to on a regular basis, but other than that, I hate people. So then I've learned that. I've learned as PTSD and combat-related PSD, you tend to not like people. So you maintain your friendships. I maintain my friendships on my own terms. If I like you and I want to keep you in my life, then I will, and I will remember your name. But now I know faces, and that's just how I perceive things. I know faces. Unless I see you on a daily basis, I probably will never remember you again. So I have these things in my brain where I just block out stuff. I noticed that when I go out to eat, my brain is hyper vigilant before I even before I even stop my car in the parking lot. I go to a restaurant and I'm looking at the cars outside. I'm looking, as soon as I walk in, I'm looking at the exits. I'm looking at the bathrooms. I'm looking at where people are. So I tend to find a spot where my back's against a wall and the rest of the area is in my perception. And I'm always, before I even think about ordering dinner, I'm thinking about how the hell am I going to get out of here if somebody wants to shoot me. I'm just combat in your head. Everywhere you go, you're vigilant about everything. So we have a tendency to I don't know, when certain people go and do certain things, like go shopping for food or whatever like that, I think a lot of guys like myself have the tendency to just, we only go to the store to get what we need. We don't shop. And it's just simple. It's just get what you need to do and get the hell out. So I tend to stay indoors now. I don't think I've been to Walmart in over a year, which is weird because I would be there every day in my previous life. I would be there every day. I don't like going in and shop. I didn't go to a rock concert until 10 or 15 years after I got out of the military, because being a year in the desert, you don't have music, you don't have regular life things going on, right? You don't have a concept of money because you don't need it there. You don't spend money. I come home a year after I've been gone, and the whole world's just moved on without me. And I come back, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's cell phones now? Like, there's, like, what? Like, I was just in Desert Storm using the first ever GPS unit that, you know, the first ever night vision, the first ever GPS unit. And then a year after I got back, they're in our cars. Now they got phones with GPS on them. You know, we didn't have cell phones. I didn't have a cell phone back then, and now I got a cell phone. But I tested the first GPS. There was 26 satellites in outer space. Now there's 1 million. So just think about the concept of that. Like, wow, I was implement. The internet wasn't even born yet, but we were using it every day, to communicate with other units overseas. But putting the phone in the thing, and you could hear the thing go. You can hear it doing all the getting online, and yeah, but that was all we had. So, yeah, there's a lot of cool things happening,
So now we're going to get into the end of service phase.
Yep.
Do you recall the day your service ended? Where were you, and when did your service end?
That's a good story. I'm going to just be honest with you, okay? So I got out, the last year of my military career went to shit. I became an alcoholic, big time alcoholic. I never drank before I came in the military. I mean, I drank, but I was never a thing. It wasn't like part of my life. But now I'm an alcoholic, and I really, really wanted to get the hell out bad. I mean, I really wanted to get out, but I was really good. I was a really good Marine, what I did. I'm top of the line Marine, but I also had an addiction for cocaine. And when we got back, everybody was out doing their thing. I came to find out that I would say 18 out of maybe 25 people became drug addicts and alcoholics when we got back from Desert Storm. And the thing about it is we were all functioning alcoholics and drug addicts. Nobody knew. And it took one guy. When I came back, and I was just feeling like I had this feeling I've been searching for since Desert Storm, since my combat experience, the hypervigilance, the feeling of being on top, the feeling of this heightened sense of awareness. And I've been searching for that ever since I got home. And the military didn't repatriate me back to society when I came back home. I went back and just started cleaning my gear like it was just another day at work. Not one person wanted to talk to me about my experiences. Nobody wanted to talk to me about the psychology of what just happened, of throwing me into combat and killing people and getting shot at. Nobody wanted to talk to me about that. So what do? I just saw a guy sitting there smoking a joint. I'm like, hey, dude, I think I could probably use some of that. Then the guy's like, here, try this. Give me a pipe. But he puts crack cocaine in it. And then bam. That one hit of crack cocaine was the exact same feeling of euphoria that I've been looking for. And if you really want to know what it feels to have artillery coming down on top of you, and all of a sudden just be like, wow. Now do a hit of crack cocaine, I'll tell you right now, I'll give you the same experience. I've been searching for that ever since. That one hit, I was addicted. So for a year and a half, I smoked crack every single day. Every single day. It was get up in the morning, do a hit of crack, get in the shower. Guess what? I got to do a hit of crack while I'm in the shower. I get out of the shower. I get dressed, put on my Marine Corps uniform, hit a crack, get in the car, smoke on the way to work, get to work. Oh, shit, it's been an hour, got to go to the bathroom. Do a hit in the bathroom. Oh, it's been another hour, got to go do another hit in the bathroom. But I did that every day, and you know what? Nobody thought I was actually better. Well, I thought I was better at what I did, and I could go all day long, What got me though was I came home one day and I just bought this brand new pistol. the Sig Sauer, and it was shiny silver, and it was huge, and it was big, and it was brand new, and it loved me. And I knew everything about this weapon because as a Marine, the first thing you learn is how to take care of your weapon. And you sure as hell don't point it at nobody unless you plan on killing them. So I'm sitting there, and I just got home, and I lined up 5 fucking rounds of crack cocaine, and I got my gun sitting there, and I'm just in a trailer with nothing in it because it's all been gone. I sold it for crack. And I'm sitting there, and just out of the blue, I mean, I took the clip out, sat it down on the table. I'm getting ready to, got my Brillo out, got my thing out. I'm ready to do that hit of crack, still in my uniform. And I'm sitting there, and then I'm watching my TV, and I take the gun. I didn't have it around, and it's sitting there, and I put it like this to my head. I'm watching TV, just letting it sit there, just resting my head. And in my mind, and I can tell you right now, in my mind, for that split second, I said, pull the trigger. There's not a round in there. Dry fire it. And then as I was about to pull the trigger, an epiphany hit me. I don't know why, but I just came out, and I went pointing my gun down the hallway, pulled the trigger, and it went off. Blew a hole in my waterbed. And I'm sitting there looking at the smoke come out of my gun. And I sat it down, and I just looked, and I'm like, wow, what did I almost do? Now, think of the situation. A Marine, a year after combat, comes back with issues, an alcoholic and a drug addict. And I think my family kind of knew. And so they were obviously worried. But here I am, and I'm like, I got a 5-year-old son. And what kind of a legend or a legacy would have I have left behind for my kid and everybody else that knew me, to think that I would have come home and blew my head off and committed suicide? When really it wasn't, I didn't want to commit suicide. It was because I was high on crack and I was friggin' stupid. And from that moment on, I knew I had to get help. And then there was a situation where we had to have a piss test, and I popped on the piss test. I knew I was, and it was the only way I knew I was going to get help. And when they did that, they found out, and here I am. I'm in a unit where we do drug and addiction. So I felt so desolate. I felt so bad. I felt ashamed. It was the worst feeling you could ever have, to be like, boy, I went from being this top-notch Marine to a drug addict. But then the military decided that, you know what, we're going to take you off the street, we're going to come in here and throw you into a friggin' combat, a couple wars, and send you back and not even talk to you about it. But then you're going to go out and get drunk or get an alcoholic-related incident or a drug addict, and now we're just going to kick your ass out on the curb and send you back home to deal with it because we don't want to deal with you anymore. So I think it's a shame that the military would do that to their soldiers, where they would take somebody that obviously didn't have any problems to now turning me into an alcoholic and a drug addict, regardless of whether it was my choice or not, and then just to boot me out and not have any kind of recollection to say, well, maybe let's figure out why this guy is like this. He could probably be a really good Marine again someday. But they don't want to even talk about why you're like that. I think they know why you're like that, and they don't want to be part of the problem. So that's my biggest thing about the military today, is how they treat their veterans, or how they treat their military personnel, where they would do something like that and then send them back with all these issues and then not combat the issues. I don't know if they do it now because of the people coming back from Afghanistan. I don't know if they're doing that now, but I think they still boot them out with a bad conduct. I didn't get a bad conduct discharge. I got an other than. You know why? Because I was in a military unit who dealt with drugs on a daily basis. Okay, so it was a subterfuge, and it, basically, we're writing a story right now about doing a feature film about my life. So this is all going to come out again someday. But yeah, if you want to know what's probably the worst part about the military, I think is that. Is they take these people that are good, mentally sound people, and they bring them into a situation, and then they come back, and then they become alcoholics, they become drug addicts, and then they just shove them back out onto the streets again without a conversation. So.
I Thank you for answering that question in depth. How would you say you were received by your family and community from coming back?
I came back a hero. I came back and they had I missed all the parades and stuff, but there were a couple people that were writing me letters, families that were writing me letters while I was there. So when I came back home, they had a big party for me, and I got to have dinner with them and all that good stuff. So I mean, that was pretty cool. Again, I was kind of I kind of like I really wasn't into that whole. Even when I was, I really wasn't one of those people who wanted recognition for anything. So just to get all the recognition and stuff, I felt like I didn't deserve it. But it was me and another guy, and we were friends in high school. But we were like only one of a couple of people that went into college, that went into the military, and we actually wrote letters into our newspapers. And when I went into the Desert Storm, and I wrote a lot of letters that were published. But you know, the reception was very good. I got respect from my sisters that I never thought I would get. Now, when I left, my sisters were only 7 years old. You know, I come back and now they're 15. You know, so I never really get to see them grow up. But yeah, I mean, I think my reception was well received. Yeah, I was impressed.
Good. That's good. Some veterans didn't have that, you know.
No, not at all.
But you said you had a lot of things that you pursued. So, education-wise, did you use the GI Bill and all that, or?
Well, because of my situation, I didn't get access to my GI Bill. I lost that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say I went to film school here. I used my GI Bill. I actually got access to my GI Bill after all these years. I fought for a lot of this stuff. And that was probably the best decision that I made in my life to date, at this age. Because if I hadn't moved to Tennessee, I would not have went to film school. I was just a rock star photographer in Boston who came here and traveled around with his wife for a while as she was a travel nurse, so I traveled with her. But meanwhile, I'm sitting in a house or a motel room while she's working, and I'm not doing anything but sitting there watching TV. I had no life. And so when we moved back and bought the house, I was like, I got to go to school. You know, I'm a really good photographer, but I'm self-taught. So I've never really went to school to learn the theory of photography. And so I'm like, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to look up and try to use my GI Bill and try to figure out if I can get them to pay for me to go to school and maybe learn the theory of my camera. Because when I'm driving around Nashville as an Uber driver, I'm seeing all this architectural stuff, and I'm like, dude, I would love this architectural photography. I wonder how good I could be imagine how good I could be if I really knew the theory of my camera. So I was like, I used the GI Bill. Went to film school, and then when I came to film school, I realized it really wasn't learning how to use your camera. It was like making Hollywood films, which was even a double whammy. Like, oh my God, you know, because everybody's always told me when I was a kid growing up I should have been a comedian or in the movies. And, you know, now I have this. And then when I went to film school, the first three things they told me was get a resume, an online presence, and get a freaking business card. And the first week, that's what I did. And ever since then, now I've been in movies and TV and commercials and 20 music videos. I've been in 40 films. So, I think this is what I want to do for the rest of my life is the acting thing. Maybe in between I could learn a few things, but I think my main theory in life was, after the military, was learn a new trade every 2 years, no matter what it is, learn something. You know, so I mean, I'm a very well-rounded guy. I know a little bit about everything to be considered handy. But other than that, I'm not a professional of everything, but I've done things. And I have a lot of stories to tell, too. And as an actor, being an actor, every job I go to is a story, is something great or maybe not that great. But I think I'm done learning new things other than just honing my craft as an actor right now. And I think that's pretty much what I want to do for the rest of my life.
That's awesome. that we got to find something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for taking time to share your recollections about the military.
Sure.
I'm sure that wasn't easy to do, so I
It's all right.
appreciate
Sometimes it's good to talk about
it. It is good.
things.
Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to add that we didn't cover?
I think you guys did pretty good. You guys did pretty good. I do appreciate the time.
What would you like people to know or remember from your story?
Well, I will tell you this. When I was a guardian ad litem in the court system, I used to take babies away from their parents when they were born because they were born heroin addicts. And if you're going to take anything away from my experiences in the military or anything like that, is don't ever judge a book by its cover. Don't ever assume that the person that's sitting in front of you has had a good life or has had the same life as you, because you don't have any idea where people come from. But there was a time when one day, now, because I was an addict, and here I am now working with addicts, I kind of understood where they were coming from. But here I am trying to get this child back in the home of its mom, when the mom, for the next 2 years, does not want to get along with the program. She'd rather do heroin. I can see why she wants to do heroin. Not that I've ever done that, but I'm just saying. I've been under bridges with homeless people who were my clients, and I would go sit under a bridge and have a six-pack of beer with them, and I can understand why they want to sleep under a bridge for the rest of their life. You have to know where they're coming from and why they're there. And most people are there by choice. And so here I am, and I'm getting ready to tell the judge that I think this child should be adopted and the mom should not have custody of this child. But I have nothing to base my decision on prior to her being a junkie, because I don't know her other than being a junkie. But I thought to myself the day I made that recommendation that maybe she needs that gun to her head moment, just like I did, to be able to say, I got to get my shit together. And then she has to want to do it. So for me to sit there and judge this person based on what I see and what I know was probably one of the most difficult decisions I ever made, because here I am thinking, what happens if her life ain't good now in the time frame that the state wants her to get her shit together, but maybe 5 years down the road she gets her shit together and she realizes now she don't have her child. So if you're going to get anything out of this conversation that we just had today, is to don't ever judge a book by its cover and treat everybody the same way you'd want to be treated. Because I could tell you a story about a time I took a dump next to a dead guy in a crater. All right, but what good's that gonna do? Unless you're having a conversation with me about the same thing because you've experienced it. Okay, so it's really hard for me to have to talk to other people about things in my life. But if you're a veteran and you've been there, we're friends now. I mean, automatically I have a reason to tell you a story, and that's like therapy to me. But I think there's a problem in life in this world today where you're standing in line and somebody's having a bad day and they might be a little bit loud at the cashier, but you think they're an idiot or whatever. Maybe that guy's having that moment where he just don't really want to be there. You never know. So I say don't knock people for what they do. Maybe help them. Ask questions, But that's why I only have 2 or 3 friends. It's simpler for me in life, all right, than to be friends with everybody. So, I mean, I think make your life simple, do simple things, but also don't judge. Don't judge other people, especially veterans. You're not going to know who's a veteran. Other veterans can pick out a veteran like that. But I see a guy from Korea coming into the Dunkin' Donuts with a hat on. He's a veteran from Korea, and I have to go up and say, thank you for your service. I don't have to tell him anything about me. Okay? Now, I wear this ring for a reason. I don't want to talk about it, but I'll sit in a line and somebody will actually, I can see him looking at my ring, wanting to know what it is. And then a Marine will be, hey, you're in Marine Corps. Yeah. Well, Semper Fi, Devil Down. And there you go. It's automatic camaraderie. And I can't do that in life, in regular life. I can't do that with regular people. So I think if you get anything out of this, is just, treat everybody like you'd want to be treated. Because you could set off a guy and make him have a really bad day if you don't understand where he's coming from, especially a veteran, combat veteran. And we have this thing where we always say, "Oh, I don't like to deal with stupid people," and you're going to hear that from a lot of veterans. I don't like to deal with stupid people. I don't know where we come up with that term, but I think it's just like I've noticed like a lot of veterans say the same thing. It's like, but everybody has their own reason for not liking stupid people. So, yeah, just get along with people, man. Love people.
That's a great philosophy, sir. I agree.
Thank you,
with
man.
that. All right. Well, thank you so much, man.
You're welcome.
I guess we'll cut there.